Look, I want to go to Matt Canavan, a critical figure in the federal coalition, especially in the light of these news polls. Now, I know people tend to shake their heads and say, oh, there's Matt Canavan again. I say, thank God he's everywhere, because on the news poll, which I discussed with Peter, the coalition are in a stack of trouble. He is a senator for Queensland, where Scott Morrison's on the nose. On the news poll, the swing against the coalition there is 5.4%. The Prime Minister's approval rating is 20%. When I wrote speeches for Prime Minister Fraser, he always reminded me of one guiding principle, Alan. All we have to do is get genuine Liberals to vote Liberal. And that's true. The difficulty with those poll numbers is that former government supporters are shaking their heads. In people like Matt Canavan and Barnaby Joyce, you've got people fighting for traditional coalition values. So Matt Canavan has gone on the front foot this week in relation to this National Farmers Federation. What a mob they are, a rabble. They sit in air-conditioned offices. I've never known who they represent. But just imagine going to the bush and talking about net zero carbon dioxide emissions. The total emissions from transport and agriculture are equal to those from the generation of coal-fired power. From agriculture, 75 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. So reduce that by 35% is what they're talking about by 2030. And what do you get? If you've got 1.5 million cows, which the nation has, reduce the herd by 525,000. Matthew Keane in New South Wales wants that by 2030. 58,000 cows a year. The beef herd's 30 million. Reduce that by 35%. That's 10.5 million. So get rid of 1.2 million cattle every year. I mean, tell that to the bush. I've always thought the National Farmers Federation were populated by people who know little about farming reality. Matt Canavan has called them guilty of hypocrisy. He joins me. Matt, thank you for your time, but my God, it's pretty rough when you've got to argue with the mob who are supposed to be representing your constituency.
Well, Alan, it is disappointing, but this is the modern experience with lots of groups who don't want to get a rejection to the latest dinner party in Sydney. The problems become when you get to spend too much time in Canberra. If you don't have certain views, you won't be invited into polite company. And for some people, put a large premium on that. I actually prefer not to go to those functions. So maybe part of my stances are just in my self-interest, so I get automatically excluded.
But I mean, you've made the point that 6 million hectares of pastoral land, as a result of Kyoto, have been taken from land use and reforested. But the National Farmers Federation seem to be in bed with Labor. I mean, there aren't many people prepared to stand up for this nonsense. This is
the incoherence here, Alan. That notionally, the National Farmers Federation are against those policies that have stripped property rights off farmers and told them they can't develop their own land, and converted that 6 million hectares, which used to grow food for our nation, back to what it looked like before Captain Cook turned up. So we've declined as a nation. We've adopted so many policies that have taken production out of our country and made us more reliant on other countries like China. I don't think that's what we should be doing. And in fact, give the NFF their due, that they're against those policies. But it is those policies, and those policies alone, that have allowed politicians and the NFF to say, aren't we doing a great job? We're meeting our Kyoto targets, we're reducing carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are actually going up in the cities. They're going up. They've gone up for the last few decades. The only reason as a nation they've gone down is because the cities have sent their guilt bill, their guilt invoice to the bush. And it's the bush that's been expected to pay, the farmers been expected to pay for the moral unease of those in the cities about climate change and carbon dioxide emissions.
You are a star. Look, why not, Matt, why not let the latte left from metropolitan Australia go their own way and have agriculture totally exempted from this stupidity?
Look, I don't want to have any of the stupidity at all. So I get worried when we start saying let's exempt agriculture, because that just means the mining sector and our manufacturing sector will have to bear a bigger burden. I don't think we should be doing any of it, Alan. We should be focused, as I say, on getting jobs back to this country.
I agree with that.
Rather than letting them being shipped off to other nations and making us more reliant on overseas countries. And I think your point that you made in the editorial is absolutely right. We have to wake up to the fact that the reason we won the last election was because a whole lot of people who wear bright colours to work, the high-vis workers of this country, deserted the Labor Party and came over to our side and said, these guys are going to defend my job, they're going to protect my livelihood, and that's why I'm going to vote for them this time. I met a bloke this morning at Gladstone, Kel, runs a contracting company, He was wearing high vis. He was getting a cup of coffee, and he came and said g'day. And first thing he said to me was like, "We've got to drop all this hydrogen rubbish. This is going to destroy this town of Glass, and we need to get back to focusing on our main and traditional industries like coal." And that's what we've got to do as a government. And Barnaby was in town with Colin Boyce, our new candidate, and that's what we're fighting for, because those are the industries that put the bread on the table, that pay the bills in the city, and they're the people that brought us to this dance, and they're the ones we should stick to.
Good on you. Well, let me tell you something. I don't care if we see you on the media and hear you in the media every minute of the day, because someone's got to win this battle. It is, as I've said many times, a national economic suicide note. Net zero carbon dioxide emissions. Good to talk to you, Matt. Keep well, and we'll talk to you again soon and often. There he is, Matt Canavan. Isn't that a breath of fresh air? Senator Matt Canavan from Queensland.